Welcome to the No Show. My name's Andrea Edwards.
My name's Tim Wade.
And my name is Joe Augustin. And welcome to the complete team on the No Show.
The original.
It has been quite a while since we've had everyone together. Welcome to the show that tries to make sense of the world, and so that when you, I guess, head into the weekend, you can actually say to people, yeah, I know, right? I know. It's also about, of course, maybe helping you get some of the words that you might need to talk about the stuff that is happening in the world. There's a lot more than you may have just seen on your TikTok or whatever it is, wherever your source may be. But I don't want to take too much of the oxygen. I'm just going to say one last thing. Like, subscribe, because we'll be gone. This is going to be
that's an odd
last. Yeah. It's the last of this show. Yeah, subscribe now. There are no more shows. We'll explain all that in just a moment. But for now, yes, the man of the moment, Tim. Hello.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. So I went back and had a look at our very first show, which was a bit of a shambles, but that's
and
all right.
Other show afterwards.
But August 2021. And
wow.
I remember it happened. It was when the US was leaving Afghanistan completely. And I remember reaching out to you, Tim, and just going, we've got to do something. We've got to start something. And you came up with the name, you rang Joe, and here we are all these years later.
Nice.
It's been I have Tim to blame for all this. Now is the first time I really know. Okay, cool.
Well, it's called the No Show for no reason. But yes, you'll know eventually, show.
But not everyone's sort of tuned into what you've been up to, Tim. So do you want to give us the story of what you've been up to for the last 4 years and the last that you've been experiencing in the last few weeks, as well as celebrations, but also most importantly, what you're going to do next? I actually gave you a celestial heavens type background for today.
Yeah, I'm going up on the next SpaceX rocket.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Okay, listen, Tim, explain to the audience why you've only been on 3 of the no shows in this entire season. Come on.
Because I was a bit of a no-show. Well, if we started the no show in August 2021, I started going to Trinity Theological College about 4 weeks earlier. It would have been in July. So at the same time, I started seminary. We started the No Show pretty much, and we've been going side by side ever since. And I finally finished seminary, which is Trinity Theological College. So I was doing a master's in divinity, which is a 3-year program, but I managed to take 4 years to do it because my first year was as a part-time sort of occasional student, I suppose, before I matriculated a year later. And I finally graduated a couple of weeks back, earlier this month. Well, 2 weeks ago, actually. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And I have been offered a position to be a pastoral team member in a local church, Topaio Methodist Church. And there I will be helping them with their youth and young adults ministry. I don't think it's been announced in the church yet, even. But, those who know. And those who are on the No Show know, of course. See, there you go. And then so I'll be helping them out there. And this is part of my new vocation, I guess. It's the new direction. And then in a couple of years, that will turn into an ordination track, which, if I'm accepted into that, will see me prepared to wear the collar effectively. But even if that wasn't going to happen, I'm quite happy serving in the church and helping shape young lives and minds and helping counsel those who are in their early adult years, sort of make sense of this world. And I think I mentioned many times earlier on in the show, part of the reason why I'm doing it is the world's going to need hope as things get, more desperate or tried or problematic or scary.
Yeah.
And and they're going to need people who listen, and they're going to need people who have a different point of view that gives them a sense of certainty, trust, hope in the future, and and so that's what I'm doing. And I've never felt more comfortably assured, if that makes sense. It's a very odd feeling to have. It's like you're not striving. You're not under pressure to strive or you are obviously you're under pressure to perform and strive and do good and everything else and raise standards and be able to do it. So it's a different feeling, but it's like I feel like there's a different measure involved. It's not a worldly measure that is defining success on unattainable levels that make people ultimately depressed. I think it's a measure of contribution and it's not by any means easy. In fact, it's probably the hardest thing that I will ever have done, based on what I've done so far to get here. It's going to be a lot more difficult than corporate.
I just think those young people are going to be lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you. I feel very blessed to be able to do it, and very nervous to have to do it, if that makes sense. It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
And you got an award.
Yeah. I feel like I want to get it. Just give me 1 second. It's right here.
It didn't surprise me. Did it surprise you, Joe?
Well,
it depends on what the award is.
You'll see.
The award is for best person ever. No, the award, it's this thing. I got it because out of all the glass awards I've been presented over the years, this one is pretty cool. It's one of those, I mean, we've seen these before at sort of shops and trinkety places and whatever, where they sort of digitally engrave, a picture inside a piece of crystal or glass. But that there is Trinity Theological College's logo, and this fella here is a guy called Frederick Buechner, although it's spelt Buechner, but Frederick Buechner, and he was a quite a amazing storyteller and sermon giver. And so this award, he died not that long ago, and this award is being created in his honor. And I think they have things going out to various seminaries to present this award. I think so. But this for TTC, this is their Excellence in Preaching award, which they give to a third-year student who's graduating. One person a year. Well, two people, one for the Chinese side, one for the English side. And I was.
You did not take both? What?
Yeah, my Chinese just let me down a little bit. The speaking in tongues hadn't quite happened for me during that sermon. But I was so thrilled to get this, because actually, even though I've been the last 17 years or so being a professional speaker, you would think shoe in for this award, but preaching is very, very different to putting together professional speech. I mean, I just did a professional speech 2 weeks ago, and it was great, but it's an iteration of the same speech that I've been doing for 17 years. Well, maybe for about 15 years, where I first created this speech. It became my signature keynote. Whereas preaching, you're creating a one-off keynote. You might end up doing it years down the track again if the same verse comes up or you're speaking to a different audience. But primarily, you're creating it one time, and you're creating it for that Sunday or whichever day you're preaching. And you have to take a Bible verse and bring it to life for the audience and bring it to relevance for that particular audience on that particular day in that particular context. And I just find that incredible, a lot more pressure than delivering the same keynote that I've done for 15 years that I can do with my eyes closed, which I usually do. Well, not really, but I mean, you can do it. You can.
I know you wear those glasses where you have your eyes closed, but it looks like your eyes are open.
Well, my eyes are closed, but I've just drawn on eyes. Yeah. You know what I mean? you're so comfortable with the content that you can do it. Whereas when you're going into exegesis, when you're going into the text and to see, what the writer of that particular scripture meant in the context that they're in and how it relates to people today, and then you're the bridge, but you're also the one to bring it alive, and then you're competing against phones, and right, and lack of sleep for some people, or the football the night before, and they're being dragged there and they're barely keeping their eyes open. So there's an element of making it as engaging as you possibly can. I was so thrilled to win that award. I don't think any award has made in my professional speaking career has made me as chuffed as that one, because the other awards were for some reason for marketing, or that I could not I didn't win an award for marketing, but you won it so that you could use it for marketing. Whereas this one is just been fantastic to get, because it's just been this, for want of a better description, a moment of grace that really spoke to an area that I had been consciously worried about. Because coming in with the confidence to speak is very different to being able to deliver a great sermon or a really good sermon or whatever.
That's your new imposter syndrome, right? That's basically it. We all think, okay, now I'm this. Am I really?
Well, I mean, so in the yearbook, we all had to write a little passage about our journey, and my passage was really about stepping into a pastoral identity, because it really felt like I've got this certain set of skills, and to have them come together over this journey. Having done counseling at psychology at university, done counseling in the years since then, being able to lead teams, happen to be able to sing, and have a career in professional speaking, all to come together in an institution where all of those things are exactly what they want and are really necessary. It's been great. So, I said the journey at the TTC journey. I don't want to labor this too long because everyone would have checked out by now, but the TTC journey for me has been one of a lot of formation and a lot of foundational preparation for the learning that's now about to begin, with stepping into the real world of pastoral care, and the number of people's bedsides that I've had to sit next to in old folks' homes, the funerals and wakes and the deaths that I've seen. I hadn't been exposed to so much before, ever, in my life until this time. It's been a very humbling and, wake up type of experience. It's been amazing, and it's been, like I said, transformative. And if I can just help somebody along the way in this next chapter of my life, help people find meaning, purpose, truth, themselves, heal relationships, make a better decision than they were thinking of making, then all of this has been worth it. Yeah.
Oh well, we wish you well. We hope it doesn't mean we lose touch, but you're going on holidays first, and I'm just hoping that when you get to Santorini, volcano has settled. Geological activity.
In God we trust. Come on.
Yeah. And then you could do a show in a couple of weeks' time going, apparently it wasn't worth it at all.
Look, if something big breaks out and something really bad happens, I guess you'll be in the right place at the right time.
I mean, yeah. Unless I'm the one who goes up in flames at the beginning, but yes.
Well, okay.
No, Santorini is still on the cards. So we leave for Greece tomorrow, and we're there for 3 weeks, and I'm so excited. This has been I feel like this is the last big trip for a while, because the thing about working in church is Easter holidays and Christmas holidays are kind of important to not go on
Yeah,
holiday.
what's that about?
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't go on a holiday then. So I'm kind of stuck with the middle of the year, which is when they have church camp. So I got to be squeezing in these sorts of time away for, for some family time and stuff like that when I can. So I feel like this will be the big one, the next big one, I think, for at least 2 or 3 years, which,
Right.
which is, I mean, I love traveling about, but I guess as far as not overdoing travel and all of that, maybe that's a good thing based on what we've been preaching for the last 4 years.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And it's okay. I'm okay with it for now. I mean, there has to be trips to go and see mum and dad. They're in their late 80s, early 90s now, so that's inevitable. But yeah, it's good. It's good. I feel at peace.
Nice.
And if Santorini goes up, I'll feel in pieces. But yeah.
Well, look, have a great time. We know how hard you've worked, and it's been a pleasure doing this show with the three of you. So thank you all.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
We still have one more show to do, though.
We haven't finished the shows. We're just going to rebrand, which we'll talk about at the end.
Yes.
But today's show, is that what you mean?
That's what I meant.
So I'm going to get you to mute when you're not talking, Tim, because I think the feedback is coming from you.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask Joe to kick us off with the moment in the news that's caught your attention this week that's a bit out there. Or just,
Well, I haven't been so much taken by the broad news, but it's just the steps that I've had that have become apparent in the past couple of weeks in terms of what AI can do. So me, I've always been very much about AI and where it is, and I've been basically running ahead. Everybody says you're in the future, and I just contend that I'm in the present. I actually know where it is, and where we should think about it. But yeah, no. So the latest tools are out, and the examples are coming out now of AI video that's been created by Google. So Google's platform is called VO3, and it's capable of doing some remarkable work. So the big complaint always has been about AI is not human. And the way this has finally been turned out is if you watch some of these videos, I wish I actually brought that video along, but I saw this video, which was a video of a car conference with interviews from different people and all expressing their perspectives and what about this car conference, and all of it, every single thing, the conference, the people, the interviewees, and every single thing in the shot, all of it was AI. And what was good about it for me was the awkwardness that they managed to capture what human beings would look like. So how if you captured all the interviews in a real conversation, you'd have people who couldn't figure out what to say and maybe just laugh in the middle of something. It was quite amazing. So for me, it's now left to the next level of production where someone takes that and runs with it. But yeah, so if you're a pro user of Google AI, I think you get access to it. You can create 8 seconds of video and audio, so it creates the full performance with a prompt.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the energy and water being used to create all those crappy videos that everyone's sending around, including dancing gorillas. But look, I'm not anti-AI, Joe, just in case you don't know that.
No, I know.
I've been exploring ways to be more impactful by using AI because, if you want to create good in the world. I'm going to unmute you again, Tim, because it's still coming. And I think it's you. Andrew Chow ran no, it's still there and you're on mute, so I don't know what the hell's going on. If anyone's listening, can you tell us? All right. Yeah, there we go. Is that better? No, still there. Anyway, yeah, so Andrew Chow really, it's all the bits that everyone's focusing on that bores me senseless, right? Or you can do these videos, or you can do these images, or you can do these social media posts. I don't care about the bits, I care about the whole. And seeing the platform sort of that are emerging, and we're still a long way off. But I saw something else the other day, Joe, that I think might be interesting to you. Somebody was posting about. Let me mute you and see if it's you, because it could be me. So now I can't hear anything. basically when Grab came out, you could get a Grab for $3. Now it's $100. So basically there was this investment period over a long period of time where they got us all hooked, and by the time we're all hooked, we're willing to pay the $100. And this person was making a statement about get in on AI now, because at some point, AI is going to become so expensive, the average person's not going to even be able to get started on it. So I thought that was an interesting perspective, also from the point of view that you see people posting, there's only 2 of us now, we used to have a team of 10. So the social implications of the job losses, which are, they think 80% of females will be impacted by AI job losses, 80%. So from a societal perspective, right? So that's going to match the far right sort of idea of getting women back in the home. But there's some big stories going around AI. So there's a tediousness to the conversation that I just don't buy into. And you see it on LinkedIn, people are getting sick of it. But there's obviously very powerful things you can do with it. But there's also the societal and environmental impacts of AI that aren't being discussed at the same intensity as creating a video through Google, So it's a very unbalanced conversation, if you know what I mean. Thoughts?
Yeah, but I think the world's attention usually seldom reflects the actual situation in the world, right? I mean, there's certainly a lot of things that are much more pressing, even in the personal life. When you reflect on your personal life, you've got bigger things to deal with, larger fish to fry. But you're more concerned about tonight's dinner, for instance, right? I mean, that's a very ill put together, metaphor, but
but people's jobs, right? Other people are talking about people are doing everything they can to create more efficiency with AI in their organizations, but ultimately they're also going to lose their own jobs, right? So I don't know. There's a revolution that's happening.
Yeah.
And I don't think governments need to be behind this, saying what are the societal implications of this and what do we need to do now to get prepared, just from a job loss perspective. And how are we going to tax the businesses benefiting from AI and profiting from AI, who are going to make so much more money because of the lack of human capital? What are we going to do there? How are we going to change the system? So it's a big conversation that I don't know if it's being had. Not where I see it should be happening.
It's a very difficult one to have, because it's like, when there's a big disaster coming, and it's why, like in situations like COVID, when COVID was first seen, it was actually in the end. Why it's COVID-19 is because it was 2019 when it was first clocked, and why it took so long for it to get to a point where we go like, okay, this is bad, because where it was recognized as bad was actually in December of 2019. It's hard to step in front and say, okay, this is really bad, and to be brave in the face of that, because you could be wrong. And I can say that in terms of the perspective of time as well, right? Time gone by. People would argue that, the people who did step forward and said COVID-19, it's horrible, it's bad, the world shut down, everything happened. At this point now, there's a certain group of people who would buy into the story and say, well, that was too much of a reaction. We went too far with that, right? So that risk of stepping forward and saying, okay, we need to do this. This is what we're going to do. Everything is really bad. We need to do all this. Even when you call for an evacuation, there's always that critical thing where you go like, okay, I have to do it at this particular time. It's a very hard call to make, and it is also something where there is actually a right time for it. The inevitability of it all is the life in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, is going to be completely different from what we have now. The jobs will be completely different. I am telling my kids, don't bother to learn to drive a car. It's not a necessary skill, right?
Yeah.
Partly because it's outsourceable, and mostly because, as far as we are still talking about, I'm not too sure about this. I see where AI is going. It's going to drive cars. There's just no way we're going to spend money in that way on that, at least big business, right? So on a small scale, personal transportation, whatever it is, yeah, maybe you might still get in the car and drive. You'll do it for sport rather than for necessity. It's not going to be something that's completely going to be about I need to drive this car. It's because I prefer to drive this car.
So let me ask you, what about AI-driven Formula One? How's that going to go?
It would still be about the stories that come around because of that, because it is going to be the next level. So we do have that kind of situation right now, like Robot Wars, for instance, right? It's not the biggest of all the games. It's still remote controlled by human beings, but it's been designed, and put together so you actually are kind of like bringing your best scientific work and then throwing it together and see who survives, right? So I think there would be something in there for AI F1. Again, it would work if it was all by different teams putting different ideas together and saying this and that and what have you, and it still could be exciting if the stories around it could work. So I again, 10 years from now, as soon as 5 years from now, life is going to be so different. The big challenge actually is to spread this. To me, the meme that needs to be spread is not that you got to be careful. You got to change. You got to be ready for change. You got to figure out.
Yep.
You gotta give birth to the inner entrepreneur, because we all have that person in us who can sort a problem out, because that is the nature of man. We're supposed to solve problems.
Yeah.
The big challenge right now is we've gotten used to not solving problems, and suddenly we're going to have to solve a real big one.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. It's not a anti-AI interest, apart from the environmental implications, right? It's we need to be not just embracing it, and I'm encouraging my kids to do it too, right? I'm investing more time in it than I was expecting. My husband hasn't even started looking at AI yet, and I'm like, you might want to be thinking about that. But we should also be doing this other stuff, because all these predictions of what the outcome is going to be are there. But I'm not seeing any signs of that other stuff being addressed, and governments need to be doing it. The only thing you see out of the US is for 10 years you don't do anything to stop the development of AI. That's it. Okay, let's develop AI and use it for all its great potential, but all those jobs that are going to be lost, how are you going to take care of those people? What does it mean? Things will be created off the back of it. I don't think AI will overtake us. Human intelligence, AI intelligence is created from existing intelligence, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I use Singapore as a good example, I mean, they've got their sort of work skills programs to try and upskill people from an industry that they think will be declining in Singapore to industries and areas that they think will be in greater need. And I think they're doing that as best. I think they're doing it pretty well, actually. So, but I'm not sure if the other countries are doing it quite as actively as they're doing here. But yeah, on David's point here about he's off to teach his son to drive. Yeah, there is a. I think I'd still teach Zoe how to drive, because there's a love of driving, and there's something nice about it. There's a freedom about it. There's a
Yeah, but like I said, it'll be done for sport, like people who learn to ride horses now,
recreation.
Right?
Yep.
That's why I got a manual tuk-tuk when I was in Phuket, because I wanted to enjoy, because it's a tiny percentage of cars are manual today, and I only had about 2 friends. Like, everyone could borrow Doris, take her to the beach, do whatever they wanted with her. I only had about 2 friends who could drive a manual. I learnt in a manual. Steve can drive a manual, but most people just can't even drive one, and including Thais, which surprised me. because I figured they would have had manuals hanging around longer than countries like Australia. But yeah, just I wanted to feel that gear stick for the last time, because I knew that I'd probably never be able to drive one again. There is a beauty in it, right?
Yeah, and it feels like you're connected to the machine a bit more as you're
Mm.
working levers and things like that. There's something quite nice
Yeah.
about it. But oh well.
Yeah.
AI can do a lot more than
physical
just drive
involvement.
cars.
Yeah, but that physical involvement in driving a car. I had a 1958 Morris Minor. Mate, when I drove that car, I really drove that car because I mean it was really heavy steering wheel. It was
Yeah.
fun, but you
I
really
learned to
drove
drive
that
in a Mini. Yep.
car. Yeah.
The
I like
little old ones. Yep. Must have
I
been
like
Mini.
being in a car as long as there's someone who knows how to handle a clutch. That's
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So Tim, is there any news that you've sort of been paying attention to?
No.
No, you've been a bit distracted.
I've been predominantly distracted with graduation, but
Yeah.
but
All right, I'll give you
Yeah.
a couple. If you guys just mute yourselves and then just unmute when you
Sure.
speak. All right, so the first one is Taco Trump. So Taco stands for Trump always chickens out, and a journalist decided to ask him the question: was he aware that the Wall Street analysts were basically mocking his policies on trade and tariffs, that he's always chickening out? He's very unhappy about it. Pam Bondi basically said anyone who uses it will be arrested. Authoritarian much. So anyway, the taco is now a meme. It's all over social media. So keep an eye out on that. We saw today that Chinese students and Hong Kong students will have their visas revoked, and that's not just Harvard; it's all of the US. I saw an article, Killing the Golden Goose, and it was basically talking about all of these decisions are just destroying the research community and academic community in the US. Really weird story. So basically 50 years ago, this woman got injected with a needle that wasn't sterilized, and she got an infection of prions, and basically it turned up in her brain 50 years later and just turned her brain to mush, and she died pretty quickly. This was in IFL Science. So keep your needles clean, my friends. And here's a bit of gossip for you, and I'm really not a gossip person. I never have enjoyed it, but I thought this was rather funny. Apparently, Elon Musk has stolen Stephen Miller's wife, romantically and professionally. So keep an eye out for that, whether it's true. But yeah, so just getting on to the main news. So we've seen all sorts of stuff going on, of course. First of all, we heard yesterday that a court was blocking the US tariffs. And then today, an appeals court has ruled that they can stay in place for now. So, so the markets are obviously going up and down and all over the place over that. But that's only a temporary suspension. So let's see what he's saying. But basically, the US Court of International Trade said the US president was not able to make those decisions. It had to be done by Congress. We saw Elon Musk has bid farewell to the White House this week, but Doge will continue, and there's some interesting stuff about that. He's been a bit of a sook on the media in recent weeks, like boo-hoo, everyone's being so nasty to me. And like I've said many times before, I find it absolutely astonishing that he had no awareness of the impact of what he would do and what it would have on his business. But apparently Tesla, it dropped down, lost about 18% of its value, but it's back up to about, investors have put it back up to about 10% below its original value, which kind of surprises me. That I think the feeling towards him is not something that's just going to go away anytime soon. And I think the market of Tesla buyers, like a secondhand Tesla truck was used to be $110,000 US. Now it's valued at like $50,000. Like, it's a big drop, right? If people are willing to sacrifice 50 grand because they don't like him, I think, it's not going to go away anytime soon. Thoughts?
Yeah, but it's I think we're associating too much to Elon Musk for the success of these companies, because you think about why Tesla is successful, why SpaceX is successful, why in the day, why was it PayPal was successful. It wasn't because of Elon Musk's personality. It was because of the work that he did, the stuff that he added to it, and how he created the stuff he did. So it has a negative impact, no doubt. But I think the fact that he's back on the job really makes a difference, because uh we can't wind the clock back and say like, oh, back in the days when Elon was really nice, there was never a time he wasn't awkward. He was always,
Oh yeah.
he's awkward. He's not someone who's, just he's not the cool guy. He's never been the cool guy. He's never been the cool personality. Which is why when he did all the jumping and dancing on the stage, everyone was like, "What is this?" Right? Because it wasn't him, right?
Mm.
So I think you can overvalue the personality aspect of it for the product, and there are lots and lots of products where the same can be said as well. It's not about the personality involved with it. It does have a negative impact, sure, yes, but can it have a devastating impact? If Tesla continues to progress and actually make the changes to become as good as it could be, and then the potential of the investors, all the investors have put in money not based on Elon Musk, but on the work of Elon Musk and where it was going. It has a great potential to reach where it's going to go. Probably not maybe as high as it could have gone if you had a more positive leader at the helm. But yeah, he's still a guy who can make the difference in the right place. If he doesn't
Yeah.
have to deal with human beings and jobs and social outcomes, he's a guy who can put us on a rocket to Mars.
Yeah, well, we'll see, because his rockets are exploding as well, right? But there was a piece I saw in the FT, and I think it's 4 or 5 of the biggest pension funds that are invested in Tesla have basically demanded that he spends 40 hours a week working on Tesla. So sort of stuff like that sort of happening. But I don't know. Let's see what happens there.
Yeah, Elon's value is the work that he puts
Yeah.
in on the work that he does in the areas that he's very good at. So not so much government, but he's got a track record. And by the way, rockets exploding, that's really part of the job. It is part of the experiment. As it's the most public humiliation, but it's another version of finding 10,000 ways a light bulb doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's also the move fast, break things, right? Sort of philosophy. They're gonna break more, but then there's other sort of observations about the taxpayers are funding these experiments, but when NASA was doing it, they didn't have as much leeway to make mistakes. So yeah. Did you see the Hegseth story, the wiretaps?
Yeah, I heard bits of it. I didn't get deep into it, but yeah, he's touching into Nixon territory, shall we say?
Well, let's see. Apparently, he's got some lawyer. But anyway, Trump advisors lose confidence in Pentagon leak investigation. So basically, that he used to justify his 3 top aides, and basically, yeah, there was wiretaps involved, which is illegal, and it's alarmed a lot of people and been raised at the highest levels. So Tim Harlator, I think that's how you say, so his personal lawyer, he's been sort of the one that apparently I think was involved in it. So yeah, just another one. I'm very curious to see how long he lasts. I really am. From an economy perspective, so I was watching a piece from the ABC News Australia, and basically what companies are preparing to do is raise prices globally on consumer products to counter Trump's tariffs. So if there's anything you desperately need, it's probably a good time to go out and buy it now, because prices will go up. So they're sort of talking 3 to 5%. In a cost of living crisis, that obviously matters. People are talking about how it's unfair. And we know once prices go up, they never really come back down again. But thoughts on the global economy from that perspective?
Well, there is something in people trying to get people to buy stuff fast as well. So some of this has
Yeah.
to be, to me, I'm going to put it down to I've got stocks to clear. This is a good way to do it as well. Is that, just buy it while you can right now. Because like you mentioned, right, it's Taco Trump. So the bets are kind of half on, half off, right? If you're making big bets, you're going to say, yeah, I can't make big plans for the future. But if you're in a consumer space and there's something you can do about it, that's kind of a gamble you can play with this, the future. The only challenge is going to be actually more about timing your stocks, your logistics, right? So because Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So if those months don't line up just right, you're going to end up caught by it. And I've been listening to business people who have had no choice but to continue fulfilling orders and stuff like that, and they're really massing up some really big bills. I mean, we're talking about in the hundreds of thousands of dollars as they bring in just one shipment because of the size of a shipment that they've committed to. It's increased their costs significantly, and this is not about battling the tariffs. It actually is about dealing with the tariff, right? So some businesses are just going to go out of business because the market isn't going to support that price for that thing. And so some businesses have just got some businesses that were doing really well, successful businesses, are just having to fold because it just doesn't make sense. The risk is too much. So responsible businesses who are doing a better job of managing risk while looking down the road, some of them are having to say, we can either shut down or stop completely because that's the safer alternative than to continue business in the face of this.
Yeah, I think that global awareness and the global impact, I think paying attention to that, right? It's not just a US story. You're just sitting there both nodding. No, nothing to say. All right.
I agree with you.
I was just leaving some room. That's all. Me, I could talk it all the way home.
Yeah. Ukraine, Russia, obviously continues. So there was a report from Ukraine in Euronews. Over 1 million Russian troops have died so far in the war. That's one of the things that I really struggle to understand, why the Russians are putting up with such an enormous amount of loss. But of course, then we saw the whole Putin, Trump, apparently the Kremlin called Trump emotional after he sort of put up a post saying that Putin was crazy. But interestingly, the European sort of coalition of the willing have lifted the restrictions on long-range weapons for Ukraine, which I think is a significant change, because obviously the US was really firm on not doing that and not supplying those weapons. And Ukraine's got a new rocket that's been designed and built in Ukraine that's ready to go. So, we're going to be seeing, I think, a change in how this war is going. Anything you guys have been picking up?
So there's the old thing about the best. I'm sorry, but that the old thing about the best offense, the best defense is a strong offense. It's kind of a flip on the idea as well, right? So this turns that switch on for Ukraine. I think it's always been the view that Ukraine has the right to defend itself, but in a very defensive manner. This could really change things, and it changes the way. It changes the calculus of it, and in some ways, it actually increases the risk as well, right? Because if Russia could propaganda this from a propaganda point of view, create the story that, hey, listen, we're being attacked, and with the small examples or bits of evidence that seem to support that. But if you get a rocket attack into Russia from Ukraine, sorry, not the Ukraine, but if you have a real rocket attack, that builds that story as well. And the reason why Russia's been able to keep going with this is because in Russia the story is different. For everybody who knows what the real story is, there's a bunch of people who also don't know the story, who really are convinced that Russia is fighting the good fight. So if you think about America back in the days of Vietnam, and you think about the older set, that's the mindset that the a lot of the older Russians are actually in. They're fighting the good fight against the mortal enemy, right?
Yeah. It's amazing watching how quickly propaganda works. Because we're seeing it everywhere. It's really, really quite stunning. Tim?
Yeah, but for this one's about lifting restrictions on the distance at which the missiles are allowed to fire, because it was like up to 500 kilometers. Now they've released that description. But I found it interesting that the German chancellor said, nobody can now reproach us for not having exhausted all the diplomatic means available to us. So lifting this is considered a diplomatic means. And I guess they're doing it to say, we're lifting this to show Russia that there's more pressure on them, I guess is what he's attempting to say. But it just, I mean, and I think it's fair that it's lifted so that they can target things that might hurt the aggressor, rather than being limited to a particular radius that they can fire things at. But it just sounds like the like you said, I think it's shifting in a way that could escalate things quite dramatically. Imagine a rainstorm of stuff coming down on Moscow, or some other major cities, but Moscow would be an interesting one. It just seems like there's a escalation waiting to happen that will destabilize Europe to a degree, even more than it has been, because Europe's been a bit of a safety net with America going nuts with tariffs and everything else. There's been a lot of shift to Europe from a stock side and a financial safety side, with the war being something that's catalyzed investment in, and Trump's tariffs and everything else catalyzing European investment in its own defense infrastructure as well. So from that perspective, it's like a lot more investment into arms that aren't used tends to result in wars so that they can be.
Yeah.
Which is,
that's good.
I
mean,
we're shooting ourselves in the
one
foot.
way. I know.
But I do agree that I mean, Mertz was saying a country that can only oppose an attacker on its own territory is not defending itself adequately. In other words, he's saying they should be able to allow to strike back where it hurts to stop them advancing. Yeah. If you're only defending here, you're going to have to eventually come up with a truce that gives away part of your territory to stop them advancing.
Yeah.
So
this is the equivalent really of saying, to girls, you can use your knees, girls. You can use your knees.
Oh God. What?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hit them where it hurts. And
yeah.
Oh right. But you'd think a million body bags, would bring the pain home, but it doesn't seem to have worked. So
I don't think those making those decisions are worried about those numbers, weirdly enough.
No, but again, but the mothers are.
For sure the mothers are, but I think the propaganda, like Joe was saying, is
effective.
Is they're saying they're dying heroes rather than they're dying wasted for somebody else's sort of aggressive onslaught into gaining more mineral territory.
Yeah. I'd rather go to war than send my boys. That's for sure. Okay, so Israel and Gaza. So we talked about it a bit on the last show. It's obviously been horrific what we've been seeing. The starving children, the bombed children. There's a little 11-year-old girl who used to bring joy to other children who basically were left alone by bringing them food, bringing them toys. So she's called an influencer. She was killed in a bombing attack. There was a female doctor went to work taking care of children in hospitals. Meanwhile, she had 10 children at home, and one of them has survived, but they're in critical condition, as well as the husband, who's also a doctor. So, there's a lot going on. The Palestinian UN envoy broke down in tears talking about the children that are dying. There's a video on it on Al Jazeera. Unfortunately, at the time that he was speaking, the Israeli ambassador to the UN was yawning. and obviously that didn't go down particularly well. There is apparently a ceasefire deal, but Hamas is saying no. And there's also a letter from Israeli academics who basically have demanded an end to the war. And so they're basically saying, as academics, we recognize our role in these crimes. It is human societies, not governments alone, that commit crimes against humanity. Some do so by means of direct violence. Others do so by sanctioning the crimes and justifying them before and after the fact by keeping quiet and silencing voices in the halls of learning. So that's a letter worth reading. But there's a piece in the New York Times by Thomas Friedman, who's an opinion columnist, and he said, the flashing signals that I just saw in Israel. So basically, he's been to Israel and he's hearing a lot of talk that he hadn't heard before. Ehud Olmert, who used to be the prime minister, said the government of Israel is currently waging a war without purpose, without goals or clear planning, and with no chances of success. What we are doing in Gaza now is a war of extermination, indiscriminate, limitless, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians. Yes, Israel is committing war crimes. Someone in his own right-wing party, Amit Halevi, this war is a deception. They lied to us about its achievements. Israel has been fighting a war for 20 months with failed plans and is not succeeding in destroying Hamas. Another one is that there's lots of others, but it also gives the Palestinian side where I think 48% or 52% of it's obviously very difficult to get any data within Palestine, but I think it's somewhere between 48 and 52% of Palestinians are basically saying Hamas is doing the wrong thing. So, thoughts?
It's always about for me, the baseline story, right? It's always your perspective, your context when you're looking at it. Because when you're outside, it's very simple. When you come from pre-established values and saying, how can this be carrying? How can this happen? There's a lot of if you X, then why do you Y? To put a kind of formula idea around it. And most times we're wrong about the X. We're wrong about the assumptions that the various sides have. What are they doing it for? What is the red line for them? And there's a real big mix for Israel as well, right? I mean, the political parties. There is about power. There is about what you want to do. Not just speaking about Netanyahu and gang, but everybody else as well. All the rivalries within Israel. There is what is a perceived idea, a long established idea about war. Right? So if you talk to classic war scholars, Israel's on track. It's doing the impossible thing. It's doing the difficult thing. It's doing the thing that everyone's going to hate, but it's sort of on track. So this is about from a classic war scholar perspective. It's the war scholar that recognizes the Hiroshima bomb was what changed the fates of changed the fate of the world. It stopped the war, and it stopped a much bigger problem beyond that. It also, of course, is in itself a terrible thing to happen. So there's that perspective, and there are those people who are in that school who can still rationalize what they're doing. It does not, at the same time, mean that any of that is less horrific. Right? It's a terrible situation, and then now is the story. So the challenge that I've heard being talked about is this: if you stop just thinking about this from a different perspective. What if I'm talking about cancer? Right? Just and again, this is going to sound distasteful to some people to think about people and politics in terms of cancer. If your body is facing cancer, when do you stop attacking it? And what's the way you address it? that's that's a kind of impossible challenge. um I do think, again, applying the entrepreneurial brain is that to go like, okay, maybe there's another way, there's a different way for us to try and approach this and fix the problem. But I think what happens now is there is no other way, as in like, we're saying, no, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. What's the other way? There's no other way, we just don't like this. And if you're in that lifelong sort of situation where there is a sworn enemy that has stated that the only way this ends is that you die, it is actually quite hard to be to enter that mindset, even though I challenge people to go into the mindset of, okay, how do I how can we work this out? How can we both win from this? Because the stated red line is, for this to stop, you die, right? And it doesn't represent everybody in the group, but that's the cancer. The cancer is attacking from a small part of the body. It's going to kill the entire organism. What do you do? So I don't have a full answer, but for me, I'm having to find the empathy to recognize those in power having to fulfill this task, because it is very challenging. It is, I mean, because I've used the cancer analogy, I'll tell you, look, in our family as well, there are lots of times you just go like, I just want to stop. I just want to stop doing it. This is chemotherapy. It's too difficult. It's horrible. I don't like it. Um, and then you go like, but what else can you do effectively? And we need those answers. I mean, it's currently, I think we're in a state of, we don't like it. We really don't like it. What else is the alternative? We don't know.
I think that the clear thing is it was never an objective they could ever achieve. Destroying Hamas, it just wasn't. But has Hamas destroyed itself? So this guy goes on. For this alone, history will remember Hamas's leaders as mendacious fools. They thought they were unleashing an apocalypse on Israel and instead unleashed an apocalypse on their own people that also ended up giving license to Netanyahu to destroy their ally, Hezbollah, in Lebanon and Syria, which weakened Iran's grip on both of those nations, as well as on Iraq, and helped drive Russia out of Syria. It was a route of the Iran-led resistance network. So, I think there's going to be, that maybe they have achieved it, but then at the same time, they're creating more members of a future organization that's going to destroy Israel. So that's why it's always just for me, it's just felt so bloody pointless, and in the and a lot of the people who were dying in the camps and the children who are dying in the camps because Hamas is in the camps with their families because there's nowhere else for them to go. So they're trying to assassinate these leaders, but they have to take out whole families while they're at it. So it's a bloody horrible situation. But the food aid, right? Getting the food in that's unforgivable. 6 weeks, that's enough to create famine, right? And that's children and women and children.
No, there's no disagreement there in terms of the tactics are wrong. They're inhumane. They're definitely leaving human rights to the side, right? I mean, the whole idea is even your enemies get to live. That's that. I mean, they if they die in combat, that is war, but they should not die because you have done things like I mean, war is supposed to have moved forward, so we don't use those tactics. And this is wrong. I mean, it is a wrong tactic that's being used within a strategy, like as you mentioned there. It seems to have been strategically correct, tactically just distasteful and unacceptable.
Yeah. but there's also great harm within Israeli society. I mean, the people who've been the soldiers on the front line of this war, that they will be psychologically harmed for the rest of their lives. Suicide rates are up massively in Israel because of the war. Young children are having panic attacks, and they've been in a war for so long that they're also impacted. Not on the front lines like the poor little children we're seeing, but they are still being impacted. So it's just a bloody war, I got to tell you. But one of the things they were saying about Trump, and there's been a lot of talk about he's abandoning Netanyahu, but he said he can't make any money from him, and Netanyahu won't allow Trump to make any history with him. And obviously we know that. But, Trump goes to the countries that give him things, cash, 747s, Trump meme coins, and official Melania meme sales, arms purchases, hotel deals, golf courses, AI data centers, and not countries that ask him for things like Israel. And I think, that's kind of, that is the leader of the US today, right? Kim?
I find it difficult to say anything because I think the Israel one, they've crossed the line of just war, and they've gone into extermination mode. But I agree that the harm that's being caused on its own people, and the difference, perhaps, I'm not sure, but the difference perhaps with the Russian version of Russian attacks on Ukraine versus the Israeli attacks in Hamas, in Lebanon, in the Palestinian territories, is that the Israeli people have access to world media to get the opposing view that their government, it may not be doing the right thing. Whereas I don't think a lot of the Russians may be getting that. It's, that opposing view. So that they can still be living in a conscientious, they can be living with the conscience that they are doing the right thing. Their sons and daughters are dying for the defense of their country. Whereas Israel's people are beginning to, like you said, are getting psychologically affected. I mean, in that article you were talking about, there was the siren commemorating the deaths of the fallen of the past. An annual thing, sort of like an Anzac Day trumpet. Saw when that siren went off and everyone was supposed to respect people for that particular day of commemoration. The little kids were, I think the person was saying in the article that the 4-year-old was getting up and grabbing their toys and scrambling for cover because they couldn't distinguish between a commemoration of heroes and another attack. And I think the trauma that kids like that are going to experience in 20 years' time, that is, and the cultural mindset that it's creating in a nation and in its neighbors becomes something that is far reaching, long into decades to come, that impacts people. And Joe, your analogy, the cancer analogy, is a very powerful one.
Yeah.
The challenge, I mean, I don't know whether I interpreted your analogy correctly, but it sounds like Israel is trying to chemo out this group that just wants them out. We'll just do anything to keep going until they're dead. And the only way to chemo out this Hamas organization and the other organizations like it is to exterminate the organization completely. But like Andrea said, in doing that extermination, the narrative then and the collateral damage then basically primes the new version.
Yeah. It never stops.
And
it's just so pointless, right?
Yeah. And it's the kids and the families, it's the injustice done to the innocent. And for, a general sitting next to me will go, well, bloody wake up, it's war. This is going to happen. People are going to die, but we're going to make hard decisions to be able to protect our people and our values and everything else. Yes, I was picturing Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men for some reason. Yes, hard
Well, I
decisions
can try and help you in some respect there.
I don't know how this became comical all of a sudden. It wasn't supposed to, but yeah. But
Got a lot.
but I do think that was a very good impersonation, though, Joe. I must admit. I think the women and the children aren't the cancer. Well, the kids aren't the cancer. The women and the men and the children aren't the cancer. It seems to be the ideology in the governments and the narrative is the evil, the intolerance, and I can understand. I mean, I would be furious as well if the narrative was these people have taken everything away, and the only thing I've got is this weapon to fire over there and take take them out. But it just, I'm at a bit of a loss for any solutions on this one because I think we're all kind of saying it seems so pointless. It almost seems endless. And I think the final thing in that article was, people have to organize themselves properly to have a viable opposition to that sort of government that can take their place in the next election. And when the people rise, I mean, it happened in the Vietnam War. When the people rose up enough, the government ended up collapsing. And and in some places that's pretty hard to do. In Israel, it should be doable. In Russia, I can understand the fear of doing it, because the way that sort of way any authoritarian regime handles that sort of stuff is to Tiananmen it.
I presume just at this point we can say this show is not sponsored by the Chinese government in any way.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just constantly like humankind. We're just so bloody stupid. Make the same mistakes over and over again. You're going to get the same outcome, and it just seems like that with war. And we never seem to be able to resolve these long-standing issues. I'm watching the settlers; they're getting more and more aggressive. They're already moving into Gaza. They're a whole new different type of breed, those people. But I want to move on to COVID. So I got COVID a few weeks ago. I've still got the cough hanging around. So there's a new form taking the world by storm. It's MB.18.1. I'm sure it'll get a fancy name soon. Apparently it's everywhere. I just heard Thailand has gone back to online schooling. It's in Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, China. That's where it's sort of started to sort of grow exponentially. Australia's got it. US has got it. So,
well, at least cruise ships in Greece don't have it.
Well, yeah, you'll probably have extra caution on the ship now. Yeah, but look, we're not going to go back to what we did before. But are you guys updated with your jabs?
Okay, here we go. Here's the science. I'm sorry, Tim. Yeah, go ahead. Say no.
You say first.
All right, so I'm just going to talk about the science of it first of all, right? Why is it significant? The main difference. So this is not going to get a fancy new name because that's the name we've got so far because it's still Omicron. So this is a variant under the Omicron family, but it's Omicron plus. So for just $1 a month, you can have Omicron, but a lot faster. So the main variant. Streaming. There you go. The main thing about this particular strain is that it's much more contagious. So in terms of symptoms, it hasn't changed very much. In terms of how easily it spreads, it has. So this is the difference. Now, based on that alone, you might go like, "Oh, then we shouldn't worry about that." The thing that what we don't realize sometimes is that we've also got this expiring kind of immunity along the way. So if we've had a combination of the vaccine and the infection, I know some people think if I had a vaccine, why do I get the infection? Let's just settle this once and for all. If you've never heard this before, a vaccine doesn't stop you from getting a disease. The vaccine increases your immunity to it, and just like a bulletproof vest increases your immunity to bullets, bullets still get through. Right? That's the analogy. But you're better off with a bulletproof vest. Okay, so you've got that. It helps you to increase your immunity. You can repel that a little bit more. And so the higher spreadability means that, look, it's around you a lot more. All right. So let's put that in the same boat as well as the flu now, because the flu's going to come back after COVID. It was way back in the distance. Now flu's coming back as well. So the double threat really is the new Omicron and flu, but let's stick with COVID. It's more around you, and if you remember as well, immunity does decline with time. So if you haven't had your booster, this is the reason to go ahead and do it, right? So if you've had an infection recently, then you have some immunity from that. But if you haven't had the blessing of an immunity, go and get your booster. It's very easy to ignore, but go ahead and do that. Of course, if you're going for a cruise in the next 2 weeks, maybe not exactly the time, because you're going to feel a little bit down. Unless, of course, it's beyond that, then you can do it right now. Give yourself some time to recover, because you do have to give yourself some time.
Got to go and do it later
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
more that
do
you
it.
shouldn't be doing any real physical heart speed sort of exercise for 2 weeks after you get the injection. That's the main thing. I got my booster a couple of months ago, and I actually got a flu vaccine this year for the first time. Never had one before. So yeah, I've always kept up to date. I probably spread them out a little bit more than more than 6 months, probably every year. But the important thing about the boosters is the more recent booster is closer to the current version of COVID, whereas the older boosters are dealing with previous versions of COVID. So that's why it's important. But it's going around. So there's obviously people that will be listening who are anti-vax. It really knocked me around. I still don't feel like I fully recovered from it. But I had the real body aches this time, which I'd never had before, and that was having had a booster. So yeah, it wasn't a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, the stats always. If you want to get a real sense of the get a wake up call, look for it when you can find the statistics on this. You will find that the numbers when you don't go a little deeper look exceptional. You go like, oh, there's a certain number of people, hospitalizations, deaths, and what have you. It's only when you drill down deeper and you talk about the proportion of people who are hospitalized. It is in the high 90s in terms of the percentage of hospitalizations and serious cases that these are non-vaccinated.
Yeah.
So that's the big deal. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you look at the stats and if you really pay attention to the stats, then you realize that it's kind of like it's the bulletproof vest, right?
Yeah, and like I was just reading a piece just about a 52-year-old man who's suffering from severe cognitive decline because of long COVID, and basically will never be able to work again. We're getting more and more information about the impacts of long COVID because we needed the time. For me, it's always been of the view, just try not to get it, right? Because long COVID doesn't look like it's a lot of fun.
Nope.
So climbing the Acropolis after a jab is a bad idea.
Just climb slowly.
Yeah, no, it's.
I mean, that much is for sure because I've got my walking stick and my bugger.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just more running, swimming, that sort of stuff. Elevated heart rate isn't a good idea. Just just to be cautious. So we're seeing a bit of a shift around the world when it comes to. We've heard a lot about Christian nationalism, and there's a lot of young men, rejoining churches, especially in the US. But of the more sort of nationalism sort of perspective, right? And there's a story that Orthodox Christianity, which is basically coming from the Russian Orthodox Church, has basically exploded in the US. And there's this guy called Father Moses McPherson, and he's basically a heavy metal weightlifter, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's
And
typical of the church.
Yeah, and it's all about masculinity. And he's saying skinny jeans, crossing your legs, using an iron, shaping your eyebrows, and even eating soup are among the things he derides as too feminine. So numbers in these sort of churches used to be predominantly female. They've changed the way the churches basically preach because it was always too emotional, and that's not male. Look, good luck to people if they're finding community within their church. But what concerns me about this, because from an environment perspective, it concerns me too, the rise of religion, where it's controlling versus that collective sort of community spirit, which, Tim, I know you'd be part of. But what do you think when you read about this sort of stuff?
When I read this particular article about Father Moses, I mean, I think it smacks of testosterone-fueled podcasters looking for, large followings, with a sort of a patriarchal view of world and family in such a way that this masculine ideal is somehow the most correct version of everything. So it sounds like that sort of popular culture narrative of the strong man getting a bunch of wayward young men going, that's my role model. And the thing is, if you look underneath that, it just says to me that these young men are lacking a positive. Real men don't eat quiche. Yep.
He's radical these days.
Yeah.
But your quiche is on my list.
If my mother makes the quiche, I'll eat it. It says to me that young men are lacking positive father figures and positive leadership examples in the world. And when you elect somebody like Trump, you're saying to the entire younger generation, that behavior, those values, and that sort of attitude is what it takes to be successful in this world, and you need to be like that if you want to be top dog in this country, or you need to make enough money to get any girl you want. And so it drives a narrative. Again, we're back to narrative. It drives a narrative that this. Now, the fact is that this guy is running a church. I can understand why the Orthodox Church is attracting a lot of people, because what the Orthodox Church goes back to is a set of values that the evangelical church in the US seems to have abandoned. And the evangelical church, the one that's got everybody sort of going nuts and being super political and everything else, it's steering people away from actual faith in God, in my opinion, and steering them towards faith in a leader of that organization or institution that claims to be a church. And then they politicize their messages somehow, and they get people to act en masse in a particular voting thing or whatever it is. But the Orthodox Church is different. I don't know if this guy, I don't think this guy is typical of the Orthodox Church in any particular way, but a lot of things have come up all of a sudden.
No, I just shared a link to Russia, War, Ukraine, Fake Spirituality. It's talking about the Orthodox Church and how Kirill, who's the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, and Putin have basically come together and and Kirill, the head of the Orthodox Church in Russia, was also KGB, and has made billions of dollars, and has got money sitting in Swiss bank accounts and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's important to look at that side of things. And when you think about how Christianity is being used by the Christian nationalists in the US with Trump, like he is not a holy man, right?
my question then to any Christian, somebody or any religious believer really, is your primary relationship with God, or is your primary relationship with a human in an institution that is claiming to represent God? Because real faith is about leading you to a primary relationship with God. That's the relationship. Like, to say, and I want to bring the word alive for you to have a primary relationship with God, not a primary relationship with me as the person bringing you that word, not as the head of some mega church that just wants more people to join my church, or every time I post a post saying, I've got my sixth child on the way, he gets a lot of likes, which was what was mentioned in the article.
Yep.
I mean, if somebody's having a child and they get a lot of likes, that's perfectly fine. But I think there's another agenda to that one. And so who's your primary relationship with? Is it with the guy at the front of the stage that's telling you what to do, or do you have a relationship with God? And is that person facilitating that relationship? And I think there's a lot of Christians and other religions too, they have whatever changed the label, but a lot of Christians in the US, for example, whose primary relationship is with their pastor and not with God.
Yeah, but it's also unavoidable, right? I mean, the human being, the human in the machine, right, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable to have that person influence you and be a good leadership role model. But the way that some of the mainstream churches do is that they'll move those pastors around to avoid exactly that. And they'll move you to another church so that it's not about following you. It's about a relationship with the church. Therefore, the church having that relationship with God, not with the individual.
Through you.
Right.
But
I mean,
the bigger story is men and young men in particular are feeling disenfranchised in the world, and it's a big problem, and we need to solve it. And those groups are solving it.
Yeah, well, young men are being sold an impossible mission, and the impossible mission is be the richest man in the world with the best body, with the most beautiful wife, and with a perfect family, and be a CEO in 5 minutes out of college. That's kind of what they're being sold. And when they can't do it, when they can't get a job, when they're laden with debt, when their relationships are falling down, when they can't seem to hold a relationship, then they end up going down different pathways of addictions to porn and following leaders who seem to portray that they've got the Ferrari, the beautiful girl, and can do what they want and become elected or whatever, and get away with murder pretty much. And they want to be recognized and influenced, then they're going to follow the wrong people. And when religion gets politicized in such a way as maybe like you're talking about Kirill, even in Nazi Germany, it happened then. So
Catholic Church,
yep. So it's there's a history of it, but
there's another side to it as well. So there's a group called trad wives, right? Traditional wives. And so they're the sort of women who will marry these guys, stay-at-home mums, have lots and lots of children, do their duty, right? And I don't have a problem with any woman making that decision for herself if that's how she wants to live her life. What does concern me is right across my life, I have met women who've been abandoned when they get to the age where they're no longer young and pretty,
productive,
and then they have no skills. So they get they're left destitute. So yeah, there's a lot of mixed sort of things going on at the moment, and I think ultimately they're not really good for anyone. But another thing we have to have an honest conversation about, and I think the men of the world need to come together and say we've got to solve this problem with our young men and take some responsibility for it. Single mothers are always the ones that get criticised, and it's like, well, where's the father? Why is the person who stayed the person who's getting all our vitriol? What about the person who didn't stay? And how do we? And you see it in societies, in our friendship societies. The men step in for the single mums. They take care of them. I think we need to do that on a much bigger scale. Teach skills. Like every man should be part of a voluntary group within the community that they exist in, doing something, contributing somehow. We should, and females too, we should all be contributing to our societies and our communities.
Churches do that. Problems. But look,
I know, but not everyone's going to come to a church, right?
The sales pitch.
But not everyone's going to come to a church. So we need to make sure everyone's covered. And there's a lot of young men right across the world.
I 100% agree.
Role models.
I 100% agree. And having just said it's about building a relationship with God, not with you, there is still the need for role models and mentors and coaches, so long as those mentor is not getting the person to glorify themselves, but is actually doing it to help develop that kid and is almost positioning themselves to the kid is not dependent on them, but it's about the other thing is it's about positive marriages. I mean, so what you were saying before about choosing the trophy wife or whatever it is, and then, kicking them out when they're no longer pretty or productive. I mean, that's harmful to the children. It's harmful to everybody, really.
Yeah.
But showing people how to have strong marriages and create wonderful relationships, not marriages that don't have any arguments. That's part of the passion of values, and conflict can create that if handled in a mature way. But to be able to help marriages flourish and stay together and help people improve and grow and heal and get over their nonsense and sort of be stronger together is the best teacher to your kids, I think. Is to have a great marriage is what is role modeling what you want your kids to be able to do in the future. And it's a hard one when the marriage is falling to pieces. It's a hard one when the stresses happen. But
we need to build societies with whole people, right? There's trauma everywhere. Joe?
And the thing is, the trauma, you're not going to get a perfect life without the trauma. I mean, you sign on the dotted line to follow the cross. You're like I said, I've been exposed to a lot more pain since doing this than if I just continued on my own self-centered way. So, I guess the thing is, we can't build a perfect world. But we can stop contributing. We can stop contributing to a crappier one, and we can help build a better locus of control or locus of influence that we have, whether in our community, and we can just try and be that. It's I'm sorry to say this, but it's love thy neighbor. We can be better at that, If we can get better at that. If we can get better at that,
don't jump into bed with them.
Love thy neighbor, but not that much. There's a different type of love. There's agape love. There's filial love. Yeah. So.
Okay. So the big problem is longevity. It's actually the way our lives have changed. Where we're all gone past our use-by date. And you think about what we were kind of designed for, a fundamental design, right? Guy was designed to go out there, be aggressive. He was given the hormones. He was out there to spread his genes as much as possible. And he was designed to take more risks and all that kind of stuff. And in the natural environment, a guy would die young. That was it. He would end up. Misadventure would take him, right?
It's
And in
he
that
wouldn't
short
ask for
time,
he wouldn't ask for directions.
yeah. In the short and in that short time, his fundamental, role, mission, if you like, was to spread the seed, right? And women would be around for a bit longer because of the way they lived as well. But if you look at the way science tells you how the human body seems to work as well, women also have a naturally short life in terms of what it would have normally led to. Because you think about when for instance, menopause hits and all the support systems to keep your bones, it's not about reproduction. It's more about just health in general. There's a big downturn as well once you get to the menopause age. So there's a design error. Tim, you may want to speak to the boss about this, but there's a design error in the fact that right now what we're doing is we're living as much as 2 times to 3 times the expected use by date, right? So for men, we're now getting into the 4 times how long you're supposed to live. Women, we're going into 3 times how long you're supposed to live. So we weren't designed to handle that. We weren't designed for those kinds of things. And in terms of stories, we were able to handle stories which are right in front of us. What I find is a real problem is men being men and women being women actually used to work quite well. And what's changed over time is men can't be men, but women still need to be women. And it's a case of the environment changing, the way things work, socially has changed, our lifespans have changed, our power has changed.
Explain men can't be men and women still have to be women.
Well, you see,
Yeah.
to be the good guy, to be the nice guy, right? We have to temper down what's innate, right? If you talk about I'm going to use a dog example. Okay, if you look at dogs out in the wild, right? You can kind of say if you came across a whole bunch of dogs, you could point out, if you were saying like, okay, which are the ones that besides looking at the nether regions, which are the ones that are more male, which are the more alpha amongst the group. And they would be a tendency, you'd probably pick them out. So that's the more male behavior, the more alpha behavior. It is actually fundamentally the way we're built, right? But society is this thing that we throw across that, where we go like, okay, we can be above that. We can be more than this. We can do more to fix this. So what's happening is we're in this kind of this is actually 2 weeks ago now. It's a kind of hypocrisy. We're actually saying, all right, these are the rules of engagement. This is how we handle our lives. You might want to do this, but you don't, right? Because of this and that, whatever. That story wraps around it. So you're actually tempering back a lot of things. And I think why, these churches or these newfangled thing where it's about the manosphere are so attractive is because it feels free. It feels like, hey, all the stuff that I've been fighting, I do want to punch my neighbor. I do want to get into a fight. I do want, I do want to have all these feelings that are about power, because that is for many, not say for everything, for everyone, because there's a range. But for those who fit in that category, it is what they've had to temper back, and that's what society has told them that they have to do. Now, that's a fundamental thing about societal groups. We subscribe to a contract, but we do it we do it by making compromises. And if we recognize that those compromises are in place, compromises are not without price. So you do have a compromise so that you have a family. You do have a compromise so you're able to get a girl. You do have a compromise so you get accepted in the rest of society. But the price is in that along the way you have stopped, being who you are really. Now, it's arguable, because for me, I very much believe you can create a whole new story. You can become a whole new person. But in the end, step back. Are you a dog? Are you someone else? So there's a
Can I just counter a couple of things you've just said? I've always believed that we need this massive island somewhere where young men can go if they show the need to express violent tendencies, and they can go and they can do whatever the hell they want. They can blow shit up, kill each other, do whatever they want. When they're ready to come back and be part of society, they're more than welcome.
It'll be an island full of politicians.
Yeah, exactly. If we were actually at the point where all of male tendencies were completely controlled, we wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have one woman being killed every week from domestic violence. So I don't think we've done a very good job of suppressing that side of maleness. A lot of what you're saying, especially the dog one. So, like, I am very comfortable with basically looking at humanity and our failings, and the fact that we are just animals. We think we're superior. I'm sure Tim will completely disagree with that as a man of faith. But alpha males, alpha females. But you said males can't be who they are, but females can be who they are, and I don't really agree with that point. I think what we're doing is creating space for all of us to be who we are, and historically, there's always been space for the male, especially the white male, to be who they are, but everybody else hasn't been able to express their true full character in modern society, probably about 1,000 or 2,000 years back, right? So I think it's more about that, so we're in a time where women are able to do more, achieve more, be more awesome, but also people who are intersex, homosexual, transsexual, whatever they are, they're able to be who they are, So I want to live in a world where everyone is able to express themselves, but some self-control, especially from a violence tendency. That's a consciousness revolution, yes, in our body. So we claim not to be animals, but if we aren't animals, then why are we still accepting so many animalistic parts of our nature? You know what I mean? And just saying, oh, well, that's just the way it is, right? So anyway, so just
I'm
it's
actually
a big conversation, but
my turn.
I'm just recognizing it before we hand over to the boy with the collar. It is something we work against. So, like you said, right? We have to rise. We have to work. It is evolution, and it's something that it has to be recognized as being hard to do, right? So that there is that evolution. I mean, like in the throes of DEI, right? I mean, look, it's like, what can I say? What can I say? Am I saying this wrong? And I mean, who's ever had to apologize in history before, where you refer to a lady and say, "Oh, she's over there. Oh, sorry, they are over there. There's one of them, but it's they." But
I think we've allowed that conversation to be hijacked far too much. So when my boys have told me about their struggles with it, I'm just turn around to people and say, like piss off. I'm trying to understand here. Don't cancel me. Help me understand, right? So we've got to push back a bit on that sort of cancel culture. Totally get that. But I don't know, because our kids have been raised in a completely different mindset to us, to the way they think about other people. And now all the adults of the world saying, well, we've had enough of that. It's bloody ridiculous, this she, him, her, they, that. The kids are like, what are you guys going on about? This is all we've ever known, So I think, we've got a bit of a battle going there as well.
Yeah. Shall we hand over to the award-winning preacher?
No. First of all, I don't have a collar. That's plenty of. But like, I want to go back to your design area. Have a word to the guy upstairs moment. I've been holding on to this one for ever since then. Haven't paid attention to anything you've said after that. My question is, based on your men are created for this, women are created, we're outlived it based on longevity and everything else. I understand that point to a degree. When is the use by date supposed to be, according to you?
Till you're killed, till you cease to exist, right? So the environment kills you, other animals consume you, the weather takes you, whatever it is.
Okay.
So if you're someone who's inclined to go out there, do the adventurous thing, so that the longest living men in the past were the people who were cowards, the cowards who somehow found a way not to be, not to be involved in the danger. But they did enough to be accepted by the rest of. So that's the early start of society. Really, you go like, oh, I can do this. I can try strategically move
I'll
that.
feed everyone while they're going to get themselves
That's
killed.
when the manipulation began, right?
Yeah.
okay,
And women,
Mm.
a lot of women passed away or died actually in the process of childbirth.
Childbirth.
It was, a terrible thing. But yeah, pregnancy. Those who could have many children had many children, and eventually, they kind of stopped being able to do that. And those who weren't able to really have the birth, yeah, that was unfortunately
Got
the way
beheaded.
a lot of them went. Yeah, well, they did no. Not in time of King Henry, but I'm talking about before that, right? It was
Sure.
mortality in childbirth was truly one of the ways, one of the worst things, because you were they didn't know how to help, so you couldn't help.
Okay,
and
so
they
we're
would die.
looking at about an age of 30s to 40s, because if you're going to get yourself killed by a stronger male, they're going to be in their 18 to 28, and so you're 38, wise but weaker, and you're going to get yourself killed at 40. So let's say, and then let's say childbirth, you manage to get through that, and you outlive your usefulness at about 45, 50. So let's say everybody should be dead at 45. Okay, that's so. But because we're outliving 45, there's a design error. Actually, maybe it's an application of design error. Whereas at some point we need to outlive the fact that our only usefulness is popping out kids or killing everybody else. And maybe at some point we need to. I mean, unfortunately, in the world, they still have a application of design error in when they can't do it themselves. They become the general or the prime minister or something, and they send everybody else off to do it. But I think we need to change our narrative, and this whole episode actually seems to be on narrative, weirdly enough. Or either that or I'm making it narrative, but you've mentioned narrative as well. It's whose story do you want to believe? And all these, so we're conditioned to operate. Okay, we're biologically have differences that allow us to do different things, but we're conditioned to behave in a particular way. And so this father, what's his name? Moses, is offering a different narrative to the young men who are rejecting the conditioning that they've been sold, that they feel like they can't live up to anymore, or that's letting them down, or is denying their rights to women and whatever their patriarchal society is, control probably. And so but at the same time, that means there's a fine line between faith and its teachings and the interpretation of that teaching, which is why I was nervous about getting this thing or preaching in the first place, because you can interpret things. I didn't break it. You can interpret things. You can interpret things in a way that I think is not what it's supposed to be, and what it's being used for. I don't know. I go back to application of design error. I just think at some point we gotta grow up out of our, chest thumping. I'm gonna rule the world and everything else, and just work out how we can actually control ourselves a little bit more rather than control other people.
And to be clear, I'm with you.
And how we can add value to our community rather than trying to exploit it. And so and that's for men and women. And there's a lot of idiot men who are still playing by a narrative that they learned and continue to believe from when they were 17, 18 years old, that they're still playing out that rule book at 50 and treating people like crap. Or there's a bunch of women also doing it who have sold themselves short and are continuing to just sort of spend a fortune on looking in a particular way because they're masking who they really are or whatever it is. I mean, I don't mind a little bit of makeup if somebody wants to put a little bit of makeup on every so often. I mean, if I did a show and I had a big zit here, I'd put a bit of makeup on that,
But that
that was awesome. Yeah.
Mm.
So maybe a bit of makeup. You know,
It's comical, right? The Mar-a-Lago face. It's actually like humans as comics. And like Jeff Bezos is getting married to his squeeze, and there's some recent photography of her after some plastic surgery. Because of course, once you've had, I've never had plastic surgery, but once you've had it, it takes. I lived in Phuket. There was a lot of people in the supermarket, for example, walking around with lips that I was trying not to trip over. Yeah, I mean, it was something special. But you know, the other thing, so the most dangerous human being on the planet is the girl child. The person in the greatest danger is the girl child.
okay.
You know, whether it's
Okay,
slavery, abuse.
I heard that. I heard that completely differently at the beginning, but
Me
I
too.
get
I
what
heard
you're
it the wrong
saying.
way. I heard
So,
it was the most
and
dangerous. It was the most in danger.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, most in danger. So until we build a
right.
society where the girl child and the boy child are safe, loved, and can be raised with gentleness, which I think can deal with a lot of these issues. But I think there's always needs to be space for testosterone to be expressed, and that's one of the things I like about the fact my boys are doing national service. They get to blow
Yeah,
shit up. It's
that's what
great.
football's for.
Exactly, right? That's what, yeah, and you know, that's what society is all about. When we settled down, there was an agreement. Men were leading it, you know, so it's not like women were forcing it. But the other thing about patriarchy is it got us where we are today. So let's have a look at some of the big things that are going on in the environment. So the first thing is, if you haven't heard,
I've tried. I'm looking for the bridge there, but I didn't find it.
patriarchy
Leap of
got us
faith.
where
Leap of
we
faith.
are.
That's okay. Okay, got it.
No, yeah. So the way we've done things in the past may not be the way we want to be looking at doing things in the future. You know, the alpha male sort of running the world, which is the Elon Musk, Peter Thiel sort of message. Um, India, since April, has been suffering an incredible heat wave. Pakistan as well, and there's been lots of other examples. But 60% of districts in India, which is basically 78% of the population, have been living through extreme heat since April. It typically doesn't start till the end of May. It usually finishes around June when the monsoon rain hits, but they're expecting it to last a lot longer. Yesterday, you may have noticed, I'm going to show you an image, in the Swiss Alps, a glacier collapsed. Did you guys see this yesterday when it came live? So this is before and this is after. Only
Holy
one
moly.
person, only one person died. They evacuated the town at the bottom of it, but it was 3.5 million cubed. M cubed. What does that mean?
Cube
3.5
meters.
million.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Of ice, rock, and
Cubic
snow
meters.
collapsed from the Birch Glacier. So basically, 9 million tons of pressure was behind this glacier. So it's also blocked. So you can see there's a waterway at the bottom. So it's blocked that waterway. So there's a backup going on there. So that's obviously going to have some repercussions down the way. But this is just the beginning of these sort of events. So I wanted to show you that. COP30 is obviously going to be coming up. I'm going to move that from the studio so I can bring Tim up. COP30 is coming up, and there's a guy called Andrea Carreiro de Lago, who's a Brazilian diplomat, and he will be directing this year's COP30. And has basically said there is a new kind of opposition to climate action. We're facing a discredit of climate policies. I don't think we are facing climate denial. So we've moved on from climate denial. So that's good news. You might not have noticed because there's still a lot of people going on about it. But basically what's happening is it's economic denial and basically saying our economy cannot be reorganized to fight the crisis. So it's another way of stalling action. I'll just quickly go through these and we can quickly talk about them. The World Meteorological Organization and the UK Met Office released a report this week, which is predictions for the next 5 years of global temperatures. And basically, it's going to set the stage for deadly extreme weather events. So they're saying there's a 70% chance that global warming over the next 5 years will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius. we're at 1.62 now. So I really struggle with the way some of this is reported. Like, I understand why they do it, but they're saying there's a potential that we could also reach 2 degrees. And we have had days of 2 degrees warming, but we haven't had a long period of time. So the last 2 years have been above 1.5. Technically, it should reach 10 years. So it's looking back, looking forward before we're officially past 1.5, but we could be well into 2 degrees warming within that time frame as well. So just so you understand. So basically, all of this increases the risks of more severe impacts, including triggering tipping points in the climate system. So melting sea ice and glaciers, and we just heard about that glacier, could reach a point of no return. In Europe, they've lost 40% of their glaciers in the last 20 years. So I don't think they're going to lose another 40% in the next 20 years, because it's going to be heating up so much they're going to lose a lot more. So sea level rise is obviously a part of that. So it's not looking good. Not looking good at all. There's another piece. Planets darkening oceans pose threat to marine life. So there's a band of water, 200 meters deep, where the vast majority of sea life lives. That's including the stuff that we eat. But more than a fifth of the global ocean between 2003 and 2022 has become darker. And so it's the size, the equivalent to the land of Europe, Africa, China, and North America combined. And 90% of marine species live in this zone. So that's another big one. UAE hit 51.6 degrees Celsius, which is just astronomical. And so there's some really big stuff coming out from a climate perspective. Anything freaking you guys out?
And it's all because of the guys. I just want to remember that we started off with that, right?
Well, you guys have been running the world for the last, especially since the Industrial Revolution. You guys have been running the world, so
yeah, but nobody
Thanks,
complained
guys.
until it went to crap.
yeah. No, I think it's time for a different way of approaching it. I think feminine energy, male or female feminine energy, needs to be in the room. I think we need a different way of being, a different way of thinking, a different way of leading. And we've got this group of people who are trying to push us back and reclaim that old way of being,
Yep. But there's also been a lot of it. I mean, I think in terms of there've also been leaders who've come along who were quite inclusive about what they were trying to do. I think it's but you're right. Predominantly in terms of the rise in power, it's been for the white male has been in charge, which is kind of convenient for me because I'm only half to blame. All right, so we're getting close to the end of the show.
Thanks,
if we
Tim.
are going to end at 5 or thereabouts, I just wanted I wanted. Would you mind if we just took a slight detour now, because I think now would be a good time for a different change in flavor. And it's again back to the thing that I was talking about. I've been working the last few days with AI, so we talked about video, right? So we're thinking about what to do for you, Tim, and we're trying to find something that would reflect a little bit about your sense of humor and stuff like that. And we went back and said, okay, let's have a look at that first show, and that it was boring. It was not boring. It was actually profound. We said a lot of important things, but it was nowhere close to what we thought you'd usually think about when Tim speaks, because we're usually having a good time laughing and stuff like that. So there went that idea. But I thought I'd give you something now, which is a little bit different. I think you'll want to keep this. Okay, so this is something that celebrates you, and it's from us. And even though I say it's from us, Andrea has not heard this and vetted this or anything at all. So it's audio. So on your side, Tim, turn up the volume and have a listen. I hope this works as well.
Hang on, it's going in and out.
the stage for a Bible in his hand, gonna preach the word across this land. Studied for years, God is calling so clear, but we'll miss him bad when he's not here. A preacher's path is what he chose, leaving behind the no-show. A higher calling we can't deny, but we'll miss him, oh, and that's no lie. It's what he chose, leaving behind the no-show. A higher calling we can't deny, but we'll miss him, oh, and that's no lie. Boy, to the chapel's pew, he's swapping the fame for something true. Still in the country, just down the road, but Fridays won't be the same, you know. Here's to the trader, the speaker, the man who's stepping into God's bigger plan. We wish you love and we'll toast to you in the pews all above. We'll see you through. It's what he chose. What he chose. Yeah, show.
It's very masculine energy.
But we'll miss him. That is what he chose, leaving behind. But we'll miss him. Oh, that's no lie. He's got a higher purpose, a mission to fulfill. Trading wild applause for faith and goodwill. But we'll cheer him on with a smile and a tip, 'cause a friend like him is always here. Give his morning show.
This never ends.
Well, it's like a real gospel song. It never ends. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
beautiful.
this is now my second best prize thing that I've ever been given. That was fantastic. Thank you for that. And it's all true.
Yeah, obviously.
oh, yeah.
It's a higher calling. So we were going to also announce that because Tim's leaving, we thought it was an opportunity to do a rebrand. And do you want to do it now, Joe? What do you reckon?
You mean? Well, yeah, sure. Let's talk about the rebrand. Where we're moving to.
Every Friday, rather than doing the alternative weeks between the No Show and Climate Courage, we're bringing it all together with David and Richard, and we are launching the Shit Show. and we want to explain what that's all about. And basically, when you listen to the geopolitics, when you listen to the climate emergency and the planetary crisis, and what's going on in our societies, technology, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, all of that sort of stuff, we are literally in a shit show. And our goal with this show is that one day we want to get to the other side of it being a shit show. And when we do, we'll change the name back to something nicer, more genteel. So that's the goal. So the shit show is coming. First show next week, not the 30th. I should have changed that. But yeah, Joe and I will still be there with Richard and David. What do you reckon of the name, Tim?
Do Richard and David know that that's the name?
Oh, yeah. They agree.
Okay. All right. Well, I love the fact that when I was on it, it was the No Show, and when I left, that's what it became.
Yes.
I mean, that's terrible. That's not good leadership. There's no succession planning properly there. But no, you know what? I think it's I think it's very you. I think it's very describes the message that you're trying to unravel. I don't know how you're going to get a nugget out of that, but I think it's
Careful.
appropriate. I think it's appropriate.
Yeah.
I think
Obviously,
it's fun. It'll certainly get attention. Yep.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get some
And
people
if
to
you
watch
have a
the
really
show.
bad show, you've lived up to the promise of the title.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I gotta say, my wife's not thrilled with the name, and she's like, "What? Why?" And I go like, "Well, it's okay. It may not
I
be
thought
for
it was going to
you."
go from the no show to the new show, KNEW,
Yeah.
as a play on a new version. But and then of course I guess it would just abbreviate to the news. But
Yeah, but
yes.
the problem with the old name, or this current name right now, it still has this thing when you say the show's name, and people go like, "What do you mean? The no show, no?"
Okay.
So I'm not sure if we've solved the problem with the shit show, but
Yeah, but the tagline is untangling the polycrisis. So that's obviously the real goal. It's about the complexity that's going on in the world and what we need to do about it. So
as
the
we
good
say,
news
the
is-
natural next thought.
The good news is
Yeah.
you can always rebrand in another year's time.
exactly.
The Shad
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah. All right, let's finish up with our usual. What are you?
Uh,
What's keeping you distracted at the moment? Tim, I think it's obvious for you. You're about to jump on a plane and go and have some fun. But have you caught up on
Well,
anything?
I mean, I was going to have fun until you did the whole COVID thing, and now I'm just thinking, yeah, no, but yes, I've been madly booking things and canceling bookings, and because one cruise changed to another cruise, and so I've had to undo things and redo other things. So, but it's been fun. I mean, I think part of the pleasure of travel is looking at the possibilities before you go. What restaurant could we go to there? That'd be interesting. There was one restaurant which I love the idea of, which was it's a rooftop restaurant that serves fancy pants food, and the Acropolis is right there. And at the old Roman theater, Puccini's Turandot is going to be performing, with Nessun Dorma being the most
Nice.
famous song. And I was thinking I could have dinner there. I can have dinner there while the opera is performing there, with the Acropolis all lit up at night. The only problem is the opera starts at 9, and it's sold out, so I'm going to get tickets to the opera. The opera starts at 9, which means Nessun Dorma will be sung at about 11 or 10:30 or something, and Zoe will be exhausted by then, and
You'll be in a
we would
different
have
time
spent
zone.
about €1,000 on bloody dinner. Pardon?
Yeah, you'll be in a different time zone. Just make sure you have a saganaki and a Greek salad together. It's like yum.
Yep, I love it. And there's going to be lots of. I've been teaching Zoe how to say souvlaki, because I reckon
Yeah.
that'll be her go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be. I mean, I think every restaurant I've booked so far is serving traditional Greek cuisine, which at some point means we're going to probably want some, Japanese food at some point. But that's what cruise ships are for. You can have
Yeah.
everything else. Yeah, but
Exactly.
I'm super excited. I'm not excited by a 5-hour layover in Doha at about 3 a.m, but I'm super excited otherwise. So it should be good.
Yeah,
Should be fun. Hopefully we escape any dread diseases floating about.
Yeah, you get that virus spray. You just spray it up your nose. It protects you from inhaling the virus. I'll send you a picture.
Okay, I've got like betadine type ones when you're starting to sore throat to kill
Yeah.
everything.
It's a Virix or something. I'll send you a
Okay.
picture.
Please,
Just good.
please.
Yeah.
Good when you're going
And,
into crowded places. Joe?
Nice.
And if you're unable to take your vaccine, the recommendation, by the way, is just to have vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Just make sure you have a good supply of that. That's going to help to raise your immunity in general.
Or don't go.
No,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Have
I'm
fun.
going.
Have a blast. Looking forward to
gonna
the
be fun.
photos and videos. All right,
Yep.
Joe?
So what's been distracting me? Well, I can report that what kept me busy for a good part of last week was I went for formal training for coaching. So I went for ICF certification, and that was with Avni Martin, by the way. And I'm going to put it on record here, by the way, that if you're going to spend any money on coaching certification, try and figure out how you can spend that with Avni, because she's what she delivers. It's it's really more than what is required for that level of certification. So I highly recommend it. And for those in the circle, I guess, because I've got 100 hours of coaching to fulfill as part of the certification process, feel free to contact me, man. And if we have a good chemistry session, we'll work something out, and we can do something. But yeah, so that's what I was doing last week. It was actually quite interesting, because part of the work is to work on yourself as well while it's being done, and a few interesting nuggets were turned, or at least some stones were turned under which nuggets were found. There you go.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because I've started coaching with executive coaching with Kathy Johnson. And
of course, and Kathy Johnson is completely fine as well. Yes, here we go.
Yeah. No, but it's different. It's sort of whole. It's a whole body one. But what I'm just trying to remember. I've gone blank on what it is, but it's semantic as well as sort of brain and heart. And I'm really, really enjoying it. I've started the coaching with the people, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's a different thing. It's a really different thing to mentoring.
Yeah.
You just got to shut up and listen.
Me holding on to my opinion. Imagine that.
Yeah. No, it's a bit of a challenge. Yeah, so I've been binge watching The Diplomat. Tim, if you're catching up on your Netflix binge watching, The Diplomat's good. But one of the things I like about it is lots of powerful women, lots of powerful characters, but also the nuance of politics. I think it does a really good job of describing that sometimes the best outcome is not necessarily the outcome that we all believe. Honesty isn't always the best policy when it comes to politics, because sometimes honesty can be destructive. So it's just I found it really good. Either of you guys watch The Diplomat?
Haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, I love the show. Yeah, it's I really love I love the portrayal of the relationship as well in the marriage. That's there's some really, really brilliant real scenes. Lots got to be said about the way it's been acted and the choices as well, because with how she's portrayed, that departure from photo perfect and what have you, and all that she does. If you want to, highly recommend it. It's everything
she's definitely a woman I can relate to. Definitely. All right, so the no show is over for the last time. The shit show is on its way. And Tim, thank you. It's been awesome. Really enjoyed it. Maybe come and check in sometime.
I'd just like to thank you both, and especially for that gospel song. I'll get everyone in church to sing it. No, I probably won't be able to do that, but I could put it forward as a recommendation that will undoubtedly get turned down. But I thank you for that. You didn't have to do that, and the fact that you did speaks volumes about your poor decision making. And I just, but I just like to thank you for it. It was a very sweet thing to do, and I appreciate the fact that you did it. And it's been a thrill to be on this roller coaster with you for the last 4 years. Yeah, I've loved it. I've felt at times, it was a source of information for me doing it, and and I guess that's what participating in this sort of thing, whether as a listener or as a host, has been. And it's been great to go on this journey with you. And kudos to you, Andrea, for beginning it, and you and Joe for continuing it. Into the excrement that is to come. But thank you. Thanks everyone who's ever made a comment or tuned in and been part of this journey with all three of us.
I just saw Steve's last one.
I saw that one too.
I was having a giggle about the nugget as well. Yeah. Okay. I just saw it then.
Yeah, if you can find a nugget out of it. Yep.
All right, we're going to say goodbye. Oh, sorry,
okay,
Joe.
So, now before you go, Tim, everything you said, completely true. Everything about what we've done and all that. is completely true. And by the way, you know what? That piece of music, all the effort that went in, it's the best $8 US I've ever spent.
Dude, your singing was incredible.
Yeah,
mm.
I was.
Uh,
I was in the choir.
yeah,
I heard the tuba.
There's one thing that we do need to fix, right? Because we currently live in the same country, and we have met in person about as many times as we have in the past when Andrea was not in the same country. So
True.
let's try and fix that. And I know
Yeah,
I
agreed.
missed the last one, but you know,
Agreed.
let's do more of it. Yeah.
I'll tell you
Alright,
where I
I-
am every Sunday, and you can come there.
All right,
No,
but I've
but
also I've got an 8-seat dinner with Irene and Tim Hammonds from convention. So I was gonna invite you guys and your lovely ladies to come along with that to that. So we've got 8 of us.
Brilliant.
So I've got 2 other people in mind. So when you get back from holiday, we'll get that organised because of course Tim has been in the US because he recently lost his mum. So I didn't want to
Yes.
hassle them at that time. But yeah,
Yes.
we will do that. And you're absolutely right, Joe. All right, everyone. See you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
For the
Bye-bye,
last
everyone.
time.
Tim.
Thank you very
Bon
much for
voyage.
watching the No